lot of people recently have been asking me how I came about the knowledge that I've got. How is it I was able to quote unquote figure this out? So I'm going to give you a very brief description of my life from beginning to this point. As a child, I was prone to it really early on. I had a bunch of experiences, and I mean more experiences than I could ever count. My mother knew that I was somewhat different, but even to this day, there's much that she sits in denial of. My mother is black, she's from Iowa. My father is white, he's from London. Okay. He's an engineer. He was a former military engineer, and he was a very adept and good engineer who traveled quite frequently, we'll just say. And my mother worked at Otis Elevator, doing what? I'm not for sure. Administrative work could have been, who knows. So from a very early age, I had a whole lot of unexplainable experiences. I had a large imagination at that time as well. The dreams that I had were absolutely the most lucid and unbelievable dreams that anyone could have, and even up to this very day, if you want to call them dreams, because I already know what they are, but a lot of people still are comfortable using the term dreams, so that's what I use. I had quite a few things that would manifest themselves in the physical. So many things, in fact, that it was hard to determine or discern between what you would call the dream state reality and normal reality. If you would call this normal reality, because there's really no difference. As I said before, my mother is black, my father's white. So I definitely had some amazing experiences growing up as a biracial child, okay? That allowed me to see a whole lot of humanity's underside, probably more so than I ever care to look at again. But it definitely allowed me to see how manipulative and, downright nasty the human race can be. As a mixed child, I went to an all-white school, and I went to an all-black church. And so I got to see some really interesting things of the way the world operates and how people treat each other. I got to see various hypocrisies within the administration of the school systems, and I also got to see various hypocrisies within the administration of the church system. And even worse, I got to see how much of Christianity was nothing more than an act. Okay? And I'm not going to claim this for the entire Christian faith, because there are good practicing Christians out there. But being from an all-black church, I got to see drama at some of its best and worst. When I say best, I actually mean worst. So, but these were the things that basically honed me and made me start looking around and saying, well, I'm obviously not going to find God or love within the church system. That maybe looking in a church when it's right in front of you at all times is maybe not the best option. Okay? God exists right before our very eyes. Outside of this place, inside of this place, everything is composed of it. So I got to see how people were treating each other within the church system, which I see as nothing more than a different sort of a prison system. Okay, school system is the same thing. Prison system. They are just institutions. Anytime you use an institution, you're institutionalizing yourself. Plain flat out and simple. So now I had all these crazy rich experiences. One of the most life-changing experiences I actually had was when I actually saw The Matrix completely. I see it now, okay? But the first time I ever saw it was between 7 and 9 years old. I went in for some sort of a operation, and they weren't able to knock me out with the typical anesthetics, and so they ended up using a combination of nitrous and something else. And I remember as I was going out, all the grids showed up. The people's faces began to distort, became unrecognizable, and then when they were speaking, I could actually hear the computerized versions of their voices and in full detail. At that time, though, I was around 7 to 9 years old. I'm 39 now. We didn't actually have movies that would describe that sort of thing. We didn't have anything on the internet. And by the way, there was no internet at that time that would have helped me to have relayed that information correctly back to my parents. I just told them I had a weird experience that scared me at that time. But later on in life, I could look at that and go, that's where I pinpointed what this place was. Okay. Now, through the onset of puberty, I kind of forgot about a whole bunch of things: socialization, school, trying to get, noticed by women. So all that stuff. Between all those things, that served as a major distraction to my overall spiritual development. And then by my 20s, I'd gotten into martial arts, fighting, all sorts of other things. And so I was becoming primarily egoic at that time. But I was starting to reconnect to a lot of my my earlier processes as a child. The things that used to happen to me, they started happening to me again in my 20s. And so, that time though, I began developing mind control. At that time I was able to start tapping into people's minds, and I was able to call animals and do all sorts of things like that. But I started going to the negative side by doing it, because I was inadvertently straight up controlling people, okay? And I realized that, it took a very massive experience for me to realize that I was messing with universal properties. I was treading on very unsteady ground, okay? So it took an experience. I stopped playing with it for a while. And then at that time I was also delving heavily into the conspiracy world and the conspiracy aspect of the illusions of this place. So after being disillusioned as a child, regarding the church and the schools, and then not being able to find God in the very places where I was told that I should be able to find them, I started experiencing all these things later on in life, which were beginning to culminate and cycle back around. So, given the fact that I was into this whole conspiracy thing, I started actually believing that the government was the puppeteer behind everything, as opposed to the system itself, which the system is not what most people think it is. Again, this is a thinking matrix, okay? And I realized that there were puppeteers behind what we perceived as the puppeteers. But it took a real big smack in the face for me, right in my 30s. So, May 5th of 2004, here was the big turning point, the massive turning point in my particular situation. Again, I had been honing abilities for quite some time, but I ended up on May 5th of 2004, a massive egg-shaped UFO came over me. Now, we're not talking about a UFO that was way up in the stars somewhere. We're not talking about something that's 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 feet in the air. We're talking about something that was only about 200 feet in the air, was absolutely enormous, and there was no mistaking what it was. I could make out details of the entire thing. There was lights going all the way around the center of it. The bottom had triangular graded lights. The top of it, at the very top of this thing, had a light that would glow according to how fast it moved. I could see the windows, and I could see things looking out at me. Okay, that's how close it was. This interaction lasted about 15 minutes. Okay, this thing was directly above me. I'm not going to go into details and as to everything that happened, or maybe didn't happen, okay? I'm just going to say that there was an interaction, there was a download. This download accelerated everything that was within me, accelerated my entire structure, particles and all. Okay, they started having memories and dreams about where I came from and who I really was, and I'm talking really detailed memories. Okay, for an entire year after having this experience, I tried to tell people about it. Most people just passed me off as crazy, insane, whatever. So for an entire year, I had friends that wouldn't talk to me. My girlfriend at that time wouldn't talk to me, and my family distanced themselves from me as well. So I had an entire year of nothing but solitude to think about things. I figured it would stay that way. I figured I had a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It was never going to happen again. That changed. May 12th of 2005, it all kicked back in again. The UFOs came back, and I'm talking in numbers. It wasn't just one egg-shaped craft. And it was to the point where I could go out, film them, I could show them to friends, and people, you know, I had regained a lot of respect from a lot of people because they saw that, well, this actually must be happening. Well, this ended up gaining the attention of the U.S. military, or Black Ops, okay, because the next thing that started happening all the time were helicopters showing up everywhere I was at. They would circle over my home repetitively, morning, noon, night, 3 a.m., okay? I had times at 3 o'clock in the morning where my house would be rattling and you could literally see spotlights coming in through the windows, okay? There were all sorts of things that occurred during that time and still occur to this very day, because even now the military still does it. They just don't do it nearly as aggressively as they used to. You know, they used to be extremely aggressive about it, but I realize now it was only because they were scared. So there's the truth of that. Maybe they were scared that I was going to find out who I am, was, is, and will always be. Okay, maybe that's what they were truly scared of. Okay, fact of the matter is, though, I present no danger to virtually anyone in this reality. Okay, only those of the most egoic tendencies need to have pause around me. Okay, and it's only because our vibrations simply do not mix. Okay, but in the end, I'm here in terms of love and peace and spreading awareness. Okay, but this didn't stop certain things from occurring. Okay, you know, the military at times got very aggressive. They also sent people to do things. They also did tons of surveillance and still do. And I had a few attempts upon my life, upon my person, okay? And some of these attempts were actually seen by my students right there on the spot. So these things, no joke. You know, all that stuff that you see in movies and everything else that you pass off as fiction. Well, believe me, there are some people out there that live the fiction that you consume on a day-to-day basis. You think it's fiction, but let me tell you something. If you only knew what was going on right under your own nose, and I do mean right under your own nose, if you only knew, you would be more shocked, because I'm telling you this, it makes any movie that you watch look weak. Okay? So, essentially, what I do in places like this, there is a reason why I have access to these codes. There's a reason why I understand how systems operate. Okay, there's a specific design to it. I'm a programmer. Not only am I a programmer, well, I do a lot of other things. I do programming and I do security. Okay? And so, those are my specialties, my universal specialties. And then what I do is I hack universal mainframes, and then I give back the code to those of the positive polarity who wish to evolve. And they have to be of the positive polarity. There's no way to cheat it. So if you try to use this knowledge that I'm trying to put on YouTube and everything else for self-serving measures or positions of the negative, believe me, you'll wish you had. Okay? There are things that are set up here to ensure that if you go around doing things that you're not supposed to be doing with this stuff, that you'll be reprimanded and taken care of. This is for the peaceful. This is for the loving. Okay? This is not for the egoic. This is not for the quote-unquote evil. This system has had enough of the the Celestials are done with all of that. Okay, so right now, in this particular world, the lower vibrationals are being stirred up, and more than likely, they're just going to X each other off the planet. And remember that you're living in a place of profiling and polarity, and the polarity is presented to you so you can be adequately profiled. Okay? Now, to sum everything up, I was brought into this world. I even knew as I was being brought into this world what the job was. To be quite honest, I remember actually where I was at before I came to this world. Okay? I came in here, again, to hack the mainframe and to give back a universal code of love. Okay? As a child, I had all sorts of experiences. When you come into places like this, a lot of your memory gets wiped, so you have to have a lot of reminders. Okay? So, as a child, I had all sorts of experiences that would remind me who I was. I would forget them for a little while. Okay? I learned about a lot of what religion was and what this world was, the hypocrisies of religion and the schooling systems here, the institutions. By my 20s, I had begun delving into negative things while at the same time reconnecting to who I was. Okay? I thought I knew too much at that time, and I thought I was a lot smarter than I was at that time. And so later on I would have to have an experience which would remove all that, which was the UFO experience. Okay, as a matter of fact, the ironic thing, before that experience, 2 days before that experience, I was watching a show, I think it was on Discovery or History, of abductions with my girlfriend at that time. And I thought it was so much full of BS that I kept asking her to turn it because the people seemed to be more mentally unstable than anything. So I kept, asking her to turn it because it all just seemed so contrived to me. And then 2 days later, I would have that experience, which would let me know that everything that I had just thought or previously thought about the way the world was BS. Okay, I did formerly believe that there were probably aliens that were parts of other civilizations and other solar systems out there. I just didn't believe that they were coming here. Surprise. Turns to find out this place is more layered with it than you will ever know. And again, like I had said in the other video, the biggest joke that there is on this planet, truth be known, is the fact that almost everything out here is self-aware, including the wild animals or the domesticated animals that many of us round up and kill via wholesale and then use their meat and sell it off and everything else. You're going to be surprised one day when you find out that those things were smarter than you and that you were being profiled. Okay? You're going to be surprised to find out that the animals that you mistreated while you had them, if you were good to your animals, that information goes up. If you were mean, abusive, hurtful, believe me when I say the animals, they're smarter than you are. They're reporting on it. You wouldn't believe how much this place is set up to placate the human imagination so that the human imagination believes itself to be superior. People here think that they're the top of the food chain and almost think that of the entire universe. They think that they are it. And let me tell you something right now. Again, the big joke is you guys are in the zoo and you're locked up and you believe yourselves to be better than one another. But you're locked up with each other. That's the reason why gravity exists. Because it doesn't exist so much in other places. At least not the way it exists here. You're being held here for a reason. There are things that you need to learn before you get off this rock. Okay? So, this is what I do. I come into systems. This is who I am. I learn the systemic codes. I learn to operate it, and I learn to see it, and I learn to pass it on and give it to those who are deserving, who have worked their butts off towards their own evolution. Once I'm done with those jobs, I leave and I go to other places and I do the same thing. I upgrade systemic codes. this is who I am. This is who I've always been. Love you with all my heart, soul, and mind, Michael.